Welcome everyone to HueFin, also known as HueFin News. Today is June 14, 2020. I want to give you all this stock market crash update. Let you all know what we're expecting this particular stock market to do. The Nasdaq, the S&P 500, as well as the Dow. All three of those indexes we're going to talk about today on this video. But before I do, make sure you guys continue to support the channel by subscribing, by liking the video, by sharing the video, and then join us on our other community social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even on our own website. All those locations, we're here for you to make sure that you all get a heads up as to what is going to occur in the stock market before anyone else. All right, and we're going to start off with the Nasdaq. Okay, last time we did our video for the Nasdaq was back during the week of May the 4th, 2020, and you guys can see that our expectations all the way back then was for the stock market, the Nasdaq, to continue to see a market move higher in price, and it did. And so much so we got that 6.14% out the market in the Nasdaq, and even made all-time highs. If you were able to tag the market at all-time highs in the Nasdaq, could have got about 10.25% profitability in that particular move. But nevertheless, you guys can see right there, 6.14% profit out of the market trapper's hand. So yes, the Nasdaq in fact did make all-time highs. We're going to change this line here, this restriction area in the market in the Nasdaq, and you guys can see here that we're just following alongside this major restriction area in the Nasdaq on a weekly basis. All right, and we tagged it last week. So would you expect the market in the Nasdaq to continue to move higher after we already climaxed and touched the overall ascension line of restriction? This is the third time that the market in the Nasdaq has came and touched this area. So with all of that and how the market made all-time highs in the Nasdaq, you guys can still see here how we close off of the highs. And another thing is that we saw a decent amount of volume. We haven't seen this much volume in the Nasdaq since about 4 weeks ago. Okay, now what this tells me is that by us closing off of the lows as well, it lets me know that the overall market in the Nasdaq got some buyers there. There are still some buyers in the market in the Nasdaq around, I would say, 9,000. I'm sorry, not 9,600 to around $9,800. Points. Okay. So let us look at the monthly time frame real quick. Even though we still got 2 weeks left to conclude the month of June, you guys can tell that as the Nasdaq continue to move higher in price, the volume has been on a decrease. So we're losing the interest in the market in the Nasdaq as we continue to push price higher. That is not a good sign in order to see the maintaining of strength in this space. So take that into consideration as well too. Okay, now just like on the weekly time frame, we're seeing the Nasdaq close off the highs on the monthly time frame right now. Taking it, switching it back over to the daily, you guys can see that right there on the 11th of June was a massive indication of weakness coming through into the market in the Nasdaq. And another thing, that Friday, June the 12th, 2020, saw even more volume, and we're still seeing indications of market weakness playing out here in the Nasdaq. So the question simply is, how low can the market go in the Nasdaq? Are we going to see another massive downward move that we saw back here in beginning half of March? Looking here on the 4-hour chart, I'm not really interested into seeing the market move higher right now. Every indication you guys can see, we're definitely seeing some individuals, some market participants selling the Nasdaq right around 9,800 points to 9,600. Okay, let's see it again on a 3-hour chart real quick. You guys can see right here that we're definitely still, that this lets me know that the market is not necessarily all that weak for us to close higher than the close of the previous 3-hour bar. So we're going to consolidate for a little bit. Okay, that's going to be expectations over the hourly time frame in the Nasdaq for the market to consolidate, and that simply means support at 9,500 points all the way back up to around 98, maybe even 99, depending on how strong the market overall really is. Okay, so the hourly time frame doesn't look bad. I'm still expecting some of that sideways consolidation of trading in the Nasdaq, and as well as prospect of movement higher. Okay. So the hourly time frame doesn't look bad at all. You know, I would definitely be playing that to the upside on an hourly time frame. But from a daily perspective, we're going to continue to play some weakness into the market for the Nasdaq now. Okay. So I'll be the first to tell you that I really don't see that much weakness in the Nasdaq right now. It's probably one of the strongest of the three indexes as of this particular moment. Okay, so we're going to play the Nasdaq here, restriction around 10,000 points, and we'll TP the market in the Nasdaq around 9,400, which will grant us about 2.75% profitability. But I won't be surprised to see some increased volatility coming to the market for the Nasdaq to try to touch even all the way down to around 9,200 points. Okay, so this is it for the Nasdaq here. I'm not really too concerned with the weakness right now, but it's just something that needs to be in the, not necessarily in the forefront, but just something that needs to be in your mind, that it can translate over to a continuation of weakness phase though. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the S&P 500 real quick. So this is the S&P 500. You guys can see we did our video back on May the 4th, 2020. You guys can see here that we played a strength into the market in the Nasdaq there. And we got the ultimate TP out in the market in the Nasdaq. 5.25% profitability had in that forecast. Let's get rid of it. And again, the weekly time frame looks weak, just like the Nasdaq. Monthly time frame, you're still seeing that weakness playing out right now as well. So from a long-term perspective, the S&P 500 is trending the same way as the Nasdaq. Nothing has really changed in that perspective. Now, this is the daily time frame that we're looking at in the S&P 500. A lot of volume came through on June the 12th, 2020. The market trapper is trying to support the high prices in the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. Understand that we're trying to hold support at 3,000 points in the S&P 500. Now, will it be successful? Time will tell, because a lot of volume came in the last 2 trading days of last week for the S&P 500. Okay, same thing here. It just seems as if the market fell too fast, a lot faster than what the market trapper was willing to allow it to drop, and that's why we came right back up to an area of more trading. So that's why I'm looking for the S&P 500 along with the Nasdaq to just consolidate for a little bit. But when you transition over to the weekly time frame, I mean, that weakness is definitely here in the S&P 500. It's a lot weaker in the S&P 500 than what we're seeing in the Nasdaq too. Okay, so I'm going to continue to play the weakness into the market for the Nasdaq. I'm going to go back and I'm going to play the Nasdaq on the weekly time frame too. I think I played on the daily, but we're going to play this one on the weekly time frame. So market already came and held 3,000 points. That has already been confirmed. That area literally is going to be the last hope and wish for the market participants in order to see the S&P 500 move higher in price. Based off last week's price action, I don't expect the market to hold that. We're going to continue to placate the market movement lower, 2,900 points. But for us, we'll TP a little bit higher, around 2,950. Okay, we'll scan off a little bit there around 2,950, which will be 2.75% market move to the downside. Okay, but we'll nest it nicely around 2,900 points for the S&P 500. So let me go back to the Nasdaq and switch it over to a weekly time frame. Okay, it is. So I just want to make sure that we're playing this on the weekly time frame too in the Nasdaq. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the last one, which is the Dow. Real quick, you guys can see we played a strength in the market in the Dow back on May the 4th, the week of 2020. 4.43% tagged out the market there. That is played out. That is old. So let's give you all the update into the market in the Dow now. And here, pretty much the same thing as the S&P 500. all three indexes, I'm telling you now, it's reflecting weakness. Okay, now the S&P 500 and the Dow is a lot weaker than the Nasdaq though. The Nasdaq is the strongest out of three. The Dow is the weakest out of the three. But we're going to continue to play weakness here in the Dow as well. Okay. Now, this area right here is trying to be maintained for support. 25,000 points, okay, in the Dow. It's trying to be maintained as support. But I'm going to continue to play some of that movement to the downside in the Dow as well, right alongside with the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. We will skin some of this market right there around 25,000 points though. Okay, just take a little bit off there, be a 2%, almost 2.25% market move to the downside. We'll skin off a little bit there around 25,000 points, but ultimately the market has the enough momentum to definitely come back down to around 24,000. Okay, so out of all three indexes, I'm telling you now that the weakness is definitely apparent. It is here. Market may even try to tag 26,000 points in the Dow for restriction too. Okay, but overall the sentiment of the market has definitely changed from what we saw back in the beginning half of March 2020. We're going to at least consolidate, but the weakness is definitely in control. That is the market emotional feel right now. So we're going to continue to play that as well based off what the market trapper is showing us on these three indexes. Okay. If you guys got questions or comments, let us know. Make sure you maintain a profitability, and I'll talk to you all on the next one.